and then they've won only a single 2-1 so far this split.
And that was against CLG, which is another one of the top teams this
Exactly. So this team otherwise has the least amount of losses out of every team in terms of games. They've only dropped a few.
Now that we're into the draft, we'll see what Liquid is cooking up to potentially give them another loss here, as difficult as that may sound. Blanc, Galio, and one of Zirene's favorite champions, Sejuani, banned away by TSM. Liquid banning away Zach and Caitlyn as per usual for red side, along with the Thresh, keeping that out of Biofrost's hands.
Yeah, and then there's the first pick, Braum, because the Thresh has been taken away here. So we'll see what Team Liquid go with there, and it's kind of interesting. We'll see. Flex through a lot of different champions. I think Kalista is a champion that you'd think would come through here, but Tristana is something that DoubleLift feels comfortable playing into it.
Well, Kalista is locked in. We've seen so much priority on this champion ever since the combinations were originally exposed in the other regions and it was sort of adapted worldwide now. This champ is just being picked first rotation a lot of the time. Inori thinking about going back to an old favorite here, apparently.
Well, he's scaring TSM. Remember, Inori making one of his debut or breakout performances was against Team Solomid, bringing out the Rengar and taking them down and ruining that perfect split of the 18-0.
Just giving them the flashbacks, setting them up for the mental failure. TSM, though, know that they're up against Kalista Rakan, that deadly combo where Kalista can vault Rakan right into the middle of the fight, and then he goes off with the combo.
It's a lot of engage range, but like I said, DoubleLift feels 100% comfortable picking the Tristana into the Kalista, and I actually think it's a fairly good matchup for the Tristana. You outrange her, you outdamage her in bursty team fights later. Your laning phase is fine. Your point and click of your trading is kind of like similar to the way that Kalista wants to trade, is in short bursts, and that's how you want to do it in the laning phase with Tristana as well, with the explosive charge.
Speaking of bursts, what packs more burst than pressing R to win? Bjergsen going to be on one of his most impressive champions, piloting that Syndra. We do make jokes about how much damage the ultimate does, but the rest of the kit, Bjergsen has shown his mastery over the entirety of this champion, time and time again.
Yeah, and now Vladimir is kind of the answer to the mid lane Syndra. It's a champion that there's been some kind of like back and forths of Syndra counters. Fizz, Echo, Zed. Vladimir is the one that's the magic damage dealer that has late game scaling and not so much an assassin out of those four. Whereas the Vladimir, once you get to 2 items, you can really destroy a team fight. And it's so much of a, you don't really get to roam as much as Syndra. So Syndra tries to clear the wave, roam to the side lanes and make something happen before Vladimir scales up.
And look at Bjergsen's Syndra stats compared to the average. They are just significantly above everything else. Kill participation, 10% higher. CSD was nearly double. Damage was nearly double. His performances are incredible.
It's funny because Syndra, even before it was a meta pick, was still always a Bjergsen pick. I remember when he first came over to North America years ago, we're talking 2014, 2013, yeah, but 2014. When he came over, it was like, oh, this pick, nobody's playing it. It was kind of a half-joke champion, but he was just so good at moving around and utilizing the passive of you can constantly move while placing dark spheres, so the inputs are different than other champions. And it's kind of a signature champion for Bjergsen, going very far back.
Always fun to watch unless you're the guy going up against it. That's a little bit of a bummer, but into the second phase of bans now. Elise and Gnar banned away by Liquid. TSM gonna take Shen and Fiora off the table, really targeting Lourlo here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. I assume a jungle pick might come through. Maybe Maokai, which was played by Inori yesterday. The Sejuani was banned against him, and he's kind of shifted over to these tank junglers, and there was a lot of criticism, people saying, you know, Inori was more of a Kha'Zix player, a little bit of Ivern in here and there when he tried to make a shift in his play style, and Rainover was more of the Gragas and all these other picks. So there was some criticism thrown at TL, but I feel like Inori is just trying to become a very well-rounded player. At the pro level, you should be able to do that. TSM fans know Galio mid for TSM is them trying to become a well-rounded team where they can play the side lane. So same thing stands for Liquid.
It's cool to be known as, oh, this guy is such a good carry player. This guy is such a good tank player. But if you can just be known as such a good player, it trumps all the other possible ways that you could describe that. Kled locked in for Team Liquid. That'll be their top laner. Gragas picked up for TSM. And normally I'd comment about how, oh, this is great. It's a flex pick. They don't know which role it's going to be, but TSM has to make their last pick now anyway. So those sort of guessing games won't come into play here as they're contemplating back and forth between a couple of different options and settle on Renekton for Hauntzer.
Did you know that Bjergsen's most played champion in his career is actually Syndra?
Really?
He has about 50 games on it with a 70% win rate.
That's dirty.
Yeah, over his entire career. And there it is, the Maokai. speaking back to the draft here.
And Maokai jungle is actually really strong.
Yes.
That champion is super potent in the jungle. You were one of the people who originally exposed me to this idea.
So I always know a champion's OP when I can win with it consistently.
So like, you don't have to be
you want to know what's
to
good.
Explain this to the fans.
Exactly. If you want to know what's good, you just check my solo queue at that time. So this Maokai, the Sejuani, also banned away from Inori. The respect that they're throwing towards him. Late game scaling for Team Liquid. A lot of engaged power with the Maokai, the Kled, the Kalista, plus the Rakan. This is a team that Bjergsen actually has to watch out in this Syndra, because if it gets even, I would say even or ahead in the mid game, then you're just going to have everybody on top of this Syndra trying to burst her.
They're going to be gunning for him all the time. And like you said, the synergy between Kled and Maokai, being able to speed that Maokai up, make sure the Twisted Advance gets within range, as well as just the combination of Kalista and Rakan. A lot of different tools to get these fights started. TSM will have to keep eyes on those flanks and make sure that Bjergsen especially isn't caught out of position.
Yeah, good news though for TSM is that they have a winning top lane, a winning mid lane in terms of the early game, and will have jungle priority there so they can possibly bully Inori. The bottom lane, Rakan's lane phase, not that strong, so I actually give it slightly over to the Tristana and the Braum combo because they have a little more kill pressure.
And going into this game, remember, TSM is not worried at all about this outcome. Please don't ban me.
It got
That's
banned.
the sign.
It got
banned. I'm sorry, guy who had the sign. They didn't listen to you. Maybe they'll listen to you in game number 2, but we got to get through game number 1 first. The teams are out of the spawn platform and onto the Rift. TSM grouping up here at the start. You can see a single ping on my way towards the mid lane, so they might just try something here.
Well, yeah, Braum. Level 1 with Braum, it's a classic here. And if you're able to catch something like a Vladimir, you can get one of his summoner spells early on. We'll see. Vladimir actually stopped. If they change their mind, it could be bad, because there's Bjergsen in the mid lane. Vladimir didn't go to mid. Well, they checked it.
Okay. Winter's
Did
bite.
Piglet see? He did see.
Okay. Ping's coming out. They know what's up.
30 seconds until minions
So it was
spawn.
kind of a strange, awkward fan out there, but Piglet eventually covered the mid. It was a little bit riskier there in case they had gone into the pixel brush. There was a chance that, you know, the chair from Braum comes out and hits Piglet from there, but we'll see. What's the Maokai start here? Maokai start. Okay. So what he'll try to do is at about 1 minute and 9 seconds, he'll throw down an E. Or about 10, 11, depending.
Okay.
There at the edge. So you put one right there at the edge. You put another one about 200 units back to the left of that, and then you try to pull the red buff through them, because a lot of Maokai players will stack all 3 of their saplings in the same bush on top of each other. And what that does is it makes them go off, and he's doing it right there, actually. So that's not actually optimal damage. What happens is when the Maokai sapling is in the bush, it blows up, and then it has 2 pops of a damage over time. Those don't stack. They override each other. So when 2 pop, you only get 1 of the extra damage. So you place 1 down, place another one to the side of it, place another one to the side of that, and then you just get the instant damage there. Ooh.
That was disastrous for Sven. The baby chickens reset and completely mess up the super leash.
So he's actually just going to be level 2 off this. He's going to be a little bit behind. So Inori's unoptimal jungle route, as much as we're harping on it, it's still great because Maokai is incredible at clearing the top side of the jungle here on the red side. He's going to be a bit behind.
Fans saying that TSM, whether or not Svenskeren has some chicken problems early on, is more than favored to win this game. 78% voting for them, but that's kind of the nature of a TSM game at any point in time. They've always got the fan vote. They've always got the audience support.
Yeah, I remember some fan votes that were 3% favored the other team, and they ended up winning. But I think the big thing here is just not underestimating your opponents. I know Bjergsen said in that sound on tape that we had where he was saying it's unacceptable. So Bjergsen sounds like he's not really underestimating them too much. But at the same time, in our opener of the day, Hauntzer said verbatim, and he was laughing and said, I don't think they're a threat at all, which is a little bit of an indicator of you might be underestimating them.
Right.
That has gotten TSM in the past.
And anybody coming into this game and watching the contest between these two, when you have one of the bottom teams versus one of the top teams, they recognize that this is skewed in favor of the team at the top. It's just the nature of one team being 8-3 and the other team being 2-9. But if you let it slip away, if you just completely start making those crazy sort of like boneheaded plays like you were talking about earlier that Liquid did yesterday, and you just start getting reckless with leads that you have, there's always a possibility for a victory from either way.
Yeah.
comparison between DoubleLift and Piglet there on your screen right now. Kills per game. Piglet actually ahead of DoubleLift. DoubleLift almost at the bottom of the standings on that one, but KDA, DoubleLift trumping Piglet pretty hard on that one as the damage percent. Piglet is doing the most on his team, while DoubleLift is doing not nearly as much, but then again, he's got Bjerg.
Well,
that he's got to
exactly. So damage percentage, you always have to think about the stat and the context of it. It's percent of your team's damage.
Right.
That will always change for AD carries, top laners, and mid laners, depending on what you guys play. If your mid laner plays a bunch of Galio like GoldenGlue has and Bjergsen has, it'll expand other people's numbers. If you're playing carry top laners, everybody else's numbers deflate because the carry top laner is doing more percent of his team's damage, right? So in this context, Piglet does a lot for his team, and DoubleLift, even if their damage per minute would be very similar, just has teammates that are doing more damage overall.
Nice buffer on the rocket jump there from DoubleLift, making sure he got away from the grand entrance from Matt, who along with Piglet is in a pretty good spot in this lane right now, up almost 10 CS compared to their opponents, taking control of the lane as Svenskeren uses the opportunity to invade the jungle of Inori, see if maybe he can get some counter jungling done onto that Raptor camp.
Yeah, waiting for the 4-minute mark, and then there's a little bit after, and you can see stacking those Raptor. It's okay to do that. But yeah, he's contesting it because, remember I said they have a winning top lane and you have a winning mid lane. So you can go into the enemy jungle, and that's exactly what they're doing to Inori here, right? When you have that winning mid lane that pushes, and you have that top lane, you force the enemy laners to either help the jungler and lose their CS under turret because it gets shoved in, or they don't help, and then your jungler just wins, or he gets collapsed on by the enemy.
It makes life very, very hard for Inori early on into the game like this. Still manages to back with enough gold to buy his Bomby Cinder on first purchase. One of the recent buffs to Cinderhulk was that's much easier to buy early on, as GoldenGlue gets hit with quite a lot of pain.
Yeah,
from Bjergsen.
A lot there. And Bjergsen, half a level away from hitting level 6 here, and you have to worry about that kill pressure.
Nice part for Vlad is, of course, Syndra has to bait out the pool before firing off the ultimate, otherwise he'll just use it to dodge away from that damage.
Yeah. Looks like they're getting a 3-man mid. They're going after Bjergsen. I said this comp will be a lot about this, and Matt's going to try to go. Gets the flash.
Get that early, but taking the summoner spell is definitely a bonus.
And this is why we talk about League of Legends as a team game, because it's very heavily about how much attention are you getting mid lane, how much is your team playing around it. GoldenGlue could have been dead to rights there and been forced under his turret for a very long time. Now, what they get to do is they get to force Bjergsen to back, purchase, get himself a control ward so he can cover one of his sides because he has no vision here, and then try to push up again. Whereas now GoldenGlue has been given space on somebody who scales, so it's very important that that happen. Actually, no control ward there for Bjergsen early on. Looks like he's just getting the Lost Chapter because that's all the gold he had. So his mid lane actually isn't that protected. It's actually a mid lane vision advantage to TL on the bottom side.
And honestly, Lost Chapter is such a big item for a lot of these mid laners that you see commonly these days that use mana as a resource.
Yeah, and usually when you're playing against the Vladimir, your mana, it's kind of, you're trying to convert that to damage of the enemy's HP, and Vladimir makes it so that it's less effective, right? If I'm spending 100 mana to do 200 damage to your HP, Vladimir makes it so it's 100 for 100 because he's constantly healing, right? And you keep doing that equation over and over again, and eventually if the person doesn't have enough mana to kill you, it's the Cassiopeia problem. If she like twin fangs you over and over again level 1, you don't have enough mana to actually kill the person. Lost Chapter helps out immensely with that. We can constantly trade. Look at this, once again, 2 winning lanes. This will do about 600 to it. Got a Q. Oh, he doesn't go for it, doesn't smite. Here comes Kled though, a little faster on the Rotato.
Trying to get himself away, flashes over the wall. Lourlo not quite getting what he wanted with that ultimate, but Svenskeren lives in Inori's jungle right now, taking everything.
Yeah, and it's like, we talk about tank junglers being exploited, but Gragas is a tank jungler as well, right? Build Cinderhulk now, and so he's just going in and he's playing off his winning lanes. Piglet, ooh, went a little forward.
Yeah, trying to really get aggro here in this bottom lane 2v2. DoubleLift has been doing a fantastic job as the... What?
No, so what you saw there is the cast time of Rakan's grand entrance is backloaded. That means you travel, then you cast. So it's interruptible on the back end of it. So getting stunned, Thresh Flayed, there's so many things that interrupt it, and that's why those are counters.
GoldenGlue dropping the ulti, grab some extra healing, dissuade any kind of a tower dive that TSM may be thinking of. And then this is the problem, right? Once Svenskeren gets to sit in the enemy jungle, steal away every camp, get that advantage, he can just walk into mid lane and say, okay, GoldenGlue, you can't play the game anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, when they chunk out Inori, when they push Inori away, it becomes a big issue. And Svenskeren now on that side. Piglet's going to have to walk around as well. Try to get back to lane here, but Yeah, so far the game, it's 800 gold in favor of TSM off of the jungle camps being stolen, the mid lane and top lane CS advantages, and like I said, they're playing to that top side of the map where they have those winning lanes.
And bottom lane's not doing bad for itself at all. DoubleLift has this timing down pat where every single time the Grand Entrance comes in, even if he's not canceling out that front-loaded animation from Matt, he's buffering his own jump animation to get himself away safely.
Yeah, it's actually the difference in cast times. So the Grand Entrance is back-loaded. The Tristana rocket jump is front-loaded. You do it at the start, and then the Grand Entrance, you do it at the end. Oh, stun. Kill.
Oh! Bjergsen showing exactly why that's his most played champion of all time. Like, look at it, take that 70% win rate and make it even more ferocious.
It's funny because you were saying that you always have to get the pool out of Vladimir ahead of time. I was sitting here going, if you stun him and do the R immediately, there's a chance. But I was like, that's not nitpick today. But it's exactly what Bjergsen does here. The stun comes through, he threatens. You always have to do it reactively, so you take a ton of damage if you don't want to pool there. And then he's just going to wait for his stun to come back up. Stun. Yep. Right as it looked like GoldenGlue was going to walk up and try to use his Crimson Rush to get a big heal.
This means I already goofed Zirene, because I was telling you 2 minutes before we started this cast, I'm not going to cast or curse anything today. 9 minutes into game number 1, I already lied.
It's all right, man. It's all right. We all do it.
Well, for TSM, they're plenty happy about that result. Up almost 2,000 gold just from a single first blood.
Well, I think they'll try to get this bottom turret. Inori is no longer playing on his top side of the jungle, because why play to the top side that has your, enemy 2 winning lanes around? So play towards your winning lane on the bottom side. This is why we always say play to your winning lane as a jungler. It's not just the 2-on-2s, the 3-on-3s. There's more to it than that. And that's going to be first turret going over to Piglet, who's even been playing well in their losses so far.
Yeah, that's a very nice influx of gold for Team Liquid to keep this game close enough to actually be a contest. If they allowed TSM to get first turret blood along with the first blood and the farm advantages they already built, things could have quickly spiraled out of control. But Liquid is doing what they can to hang on against TSM's early game power.
And now TSM are going to run mid, try to answer a turret here and open up the middle part of the map, which is huge because now it allows Bjergsen to roam around. Just the threat of having them. And that's why Bjergsen got to play so far up, even though his warding was kind of sparse on certain sides of the map. He got to do that play just auto-attacking the turret the whole time because they had eyes on Inori.
There you go. First Drake now being started up by TSM as Lourlo's knocked off of his mount top side. TSM with 3 bodies near this and no one around from Team Liquid means this should be a very valuable neutral objective picked up very early.
Yeah, they see it though. Kalista ended up seeing it with the Sentinel, but nothing really they can do about it. Jungle, bit behind there. Lourlo will probably TP back to this if he wants to save it, but they don't have vision on their top side. You can see TSM have strangled them out of vision with 2 control wards in the jungle to try and keep tabs on Inori. They see him bottom side so they can make action happen wherever they want, but also know that they aren't spotted if they try to roam top. And I think that's where they'll try to hit next, is Bjergsen will try to shove out mid, go top.
And I mean, this TSM team, you're not talking about a team that has something like a Galio mid or a Shen top or anything along those lines. You've got 3 heavy damage dealers. That Infernal is going to go a long way, making the burst from these guys that much scarier. As Bjergsen moves his way towards top. If Lourlo wants to defend this, he's going to put himself in such a dire spot, and he backs out.
Yeah, and he respects the possibility that Bjergsen is up there, and he'll have to respect it for a while until he knows that he's not, because Bjergsen backs in the bush, and Lourlo really doesn't know the positioning of it just yet, so. He got it.
Gets that away from Svenskeren, who didn't have his smite ready. Good job from Lourlo. Keeping those resources in Team Liquid hands while Piglet and Matt continue their push up bottom side onto the tier 2.
Yep, they got that turret on the top side. We'll see if they can get something here. Inori has that Maokai ultimate. It's huge. You'll be able to block off a whole lane. If he starts it, there's a TP coming in.
TP entering into this fight. DoubleLift forced to flash out just to try to stay alive. GoldenGlue will seal the deal onto him. Bio brought down nearly dead, as well as Matt goes for the kill. But
Inori has ulti
coming in for the counterattack.
I feel like they could still fight this if they wanted to. Inori has ulti. There it is.
Hauntzer with the ult on. Matt going for the knockup onto Fury, who has to flash away. Piglet now collapsed on by that enemy top laner, but he's alone and he's going to be kited back, bursted down. TSM makes the mistake of taking this fight, and Liquid finds themselves 3 kills for nothing. Bjergsen knocked up into the air, more damage coming through. He grabs the kill onto Matt, but trades his own life. And TSM meets disaster here.
and that gives TL so much. They get a lot of kills, they pick up the farm there, but Lourlo gets time on top side to start getting some of this CS back because he was in a big hole about 40 down before that fight happened.
Great fight for Team Liquid. 4 kills for 1.
And they've been drafting for this as well. They're playing to their winning lane, and they're also playing with their scalers. This is a team fighting composition, and I talked about how they'll be able to get these backliners. Matt ends up trying to go for DoubleLift, so does Piglet. And this right here from Piglet is just so well played. Backs up, Matt goes in, taps him in, GoldenGlue picks up DoubleLift on the left side, and then Biofrost drops here, but then this ulti from Inori down a choke point zones Bjergsen so much. He flashes away, and then he either eats the root and GoldenGlue's damage, or he flashes and runs. And people talked about the Maokai ultimate being too slow for things. It's not an engage tool. It's a choke point tool. It's one that you can set up and use. It can be used for engage, but disengage as well is heavy because it takes so long for it to pass. So Bjergsen has to walk to the side, stand there for a few seconds, and then he gets to walk back in. So it buys you so much time when used correctly.
It's a massive zone control mechanism as opposed to a hard initiation. TSM now not in a good spot after the outcome of that fight. They were so far ahead of this game, almost 2,000 gold up after first blood. Now they find themselves 500 gold behind as Team Liquid has gained a lot of momentum.
Yeah, and there's a lot of team fighting power on Team Liquid's squad, whereas TSM on the other side, this is a lot of pick potential, right? You have a winning top lane, you have a winning mid lane. This is what they drafted for, is to try and win those parts of the map and try to control Inori in the jungle. They do have the Rift Herald now, though, after that was being duoed on the top side, but now they're trying to switch the lanes up, and I feel like this might actually backfire a bit here, depending on what they want to do, because now Inori gets to play to this bottom side of the jungle. They get to look towards mid, possibly dive Bjergsen, or control this bottom half of the jungle too.
Liquid's starting to hit some nice power spikes along with it. Svenskeren getting himself jumped on here in the jungle. Matt dashing away to the safety of Inori as Piglet continues to fire those spears into the TSM health bars. Blade of the Rune King done on him. Proto Belt for GoldenGlue. This team is starting to get scarier and scarier.
Yeah, now they're trying to swap it back, right? They're trying to get it so that, hey, Lourlo, you know, he's catching up in CS a little bit. They're going to bring DoubleLift to the bottom side. They could go for a potential fight here in a swift moment, but everybody's just going to back up.
Lourlo, no TP for a little while longer. Hauntzer the same. So both top laners likely telling the team not to go for any kind of a crazy fight like that, as Biofrost getting himself caught out a bit. The cast to disengage, but GoldenGlue's made his way into the fight. The ulti down, and he's on a killing spree.
And Lourlo.
The Vladimir showing up.
Lourlo. Whoa, that's a... Wait.
Hold on. The arrow was...
change of course.
Okay.
They're going to go towards me.
Reroute the charge. TSM now has to defend 4 men versus 5 as Team Liquid goes for the mid lane tier 1. They do not have a Vladimir ulti, they do not have a Kalista ulti or a Rakan ulti, or any ulti at all. But they're still going to look to make this fight happen. Damage coming through, burst going down as Inori is deleted. And TSM find their counterattack.
They're just not respecting that at all. They're trying to flex. And like I was saying earlier before Champion Select, TL, once they get a gold lead, this happens over and over again where they just try to push their gold lead without really respecting what the enemy team can do. It doesn't matter if they're up 500, 2,000, or 5,000 gold. They always try to go for these forced fights like that or forced objectives, and that's what you're able to do if you're at a high enough level to just punish it and say, oh, we're not actually scared of this because they used everything earlier.
Right. If all 5 ults are down, it's not really a true 5 versus 4. You don't have every resource at your disposal, and those situations are deceptively unfavorable towards you as Liquid learns it the hard way, ends up losing that momentum we talked about. Game's back to dead even. Drake number 2 is live. You can see TSM pinging on towards that as they shove the bottom lane out to put pressure onto that turret and make Liquid answer there as well.
Yeah, and this is interesting though because we talked about how TSM went over to Europe and they were talking about how their early game was so good and it was incredibly fast, and they had a really good early game yesterday. This early game, the opposite here. Bjergsen won, got a kill, and then GoldenGlue got back in the game off of a team fight bottom side. They controlled the top half of the map, but the bottom half with Piglet just ended up going awry for them. But look at this, Rift Herald, they'll try to get some chunks here. You have to watch the team fight. You have to watch Inori's ulti and what happens.
Yes,
there it is.
Very low mana on Bjergsen. Want to be careful about making this fight go too far in. DoubleLift forced to flash out. TSM collapsed upon Svenskeren, tanking most of the damage, but Bjergsen is the one now finding himself caught out and beat down. Matt dies first. Bjerg barely getting himself away as Lourlo finishes off Svenskeren. Double barely hopping out of that. The charge will sound, and DoubleLift Lift is run down, and Nori with the kill. Bjergsen bear trap on a rope, not connecting onto him for the second proc, as Liquid finds themselves a kill for 2.
And again, it's just another team fight here that goes the way of Team Liquid. It's back and forth. The teams are just disrespecting each other, their cooldowns, and making sure that these fights are just all over the place. I'm sure you're loving this as a play-by-play.
Yeah, this evolved into full-on Fiesta, and it's a party.
But the Maokai ultimate, this is why Inori is loving this champion. He gets to start it after the charm from Matt, roots up 2. They get to focus Svenskeren, put spears in him. Bjergsen doesn't have any mana, so he can't really help out too much. Piglet dodges to the side of Hauntzer with a flash, and then re-evaluates the fight. They get a root on DoubleLift, and then this right here, he's so low. There's the sapling after the rend, and ends up picking him up at the end, and Lourlo doesn't get the last little yank on the hook, like you had said.
And the damage from that second part of bear trap on a rope is
it's
really high. That
It's
would have
all
killed
of
it.
it.
That would have killed Bjergsen if it procced.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Fortunately for Bjergsen, the knockback comes at exactly the right time to get him away from that one. 7-4, Team Liquid. Dead even in gold, up in kills, down in turrets. And you know what I really like to look at, too, in this game is the comparison between Piglet and DoubleLift, because remember, DoubleLift was actually a part of Team Liquid at the end of last split for a brief moment in time as the team fought their way out of the promotion tournament. And, of course, a little while before that.
And I love that, because everybody was saying, oh, you know, it's really great that they swapped him, that Piglet's playing mid because of GoldenGlue being gone, and that DoubleLift came in to kind of help them avoid relegation. It worked out for TL to get out of that bottom place spot, or avoid relegation at least. And now, he kind of has some inside knowledge on the team, but TL have done some swap-ups again with Inori, GoldenGlue back in mid, and then Matt coming back on support. So it's been all over the place for this team.
And how long has Liquid been trying to build a team around Piglet? They really want to enable him and allow him to be the carry that they believe he can be. So far this game, 0-0 and 7, more of the ideal support scoreline, but he's been having a good performance as the burst nearly finds the kill onto Matt. Bjergsen Syndra, very scary.
Yeah, not only is Piglet 007, he's 100% kill participation. He's been a part of every kill so far. So the action that's happened for TL has been around that bottom side like they've drafted for.
And look at GoldenGlue, 3-1 and 3. He's been a part of every single kill except one. And he's always the one coming in on the flank, landing those hemo plagues onto multiple people, and being a serious damage threat in his own right. We talk about Bjergsen, we talk about the Syndra, but GoldenGlue's Vladimir is putting in some serious work.
Yeah, and we've seen some Vladimir builds change over time, right? It's been Ghost kind of fell out for Storm Raider Surge. People took Ignite, and then they started taking Ghost back when they had Deathfire Touch or Ignite Deathfire Touch. He's just going for full mobility, get me in that fight, get me in that backline, and that's what the Kled is going to help him do as well. So this composition overall has a lot of engage. Bjergsen and DoubleLift, I feel like, are going to have a little bit more deaths in this game before it's over. But the Banshee's Veil from Bjergsen being picked up here to try and give him at least something to help avoid some of that incoming damage or incoming CC.
And on the subject of item pickups and that CC, Inori nearly has Righteous Glory completed, which is a massive item to enable Maokai to get on top of those targets that he values so heavily. Twisted Advance is normally one of those abilities. It's so nice because it's lock-on, point-and-click CC, but it's so short range that having that extra burst of speed can be the difference between getting on top of Bjerg or missing it.
I actually wonder what his build is going to go for here, because Inori can go for Righteous Glory, and then third item, Gargoyle Stoneplate, or he can go for Abyssal Mask and give GoldenGlue even more damage in team fights. I feel like Abyssal Mask might be the better purchase here, even though Gargoyle Stoneplate is like GG Stoneplate, actually, literally. It's so good, but I feel like they haven't done enough damage to him, really, and you really just want to win these team fights flat out.
Both teams playing it slow for now, though.
Could be Spirit Visage as well. Spirit Visage is super good on Maokai.
Multiplies the healing that he gets from the passive.
And the fact that Spirit Visage got buffed to 30% since the last time we had seen Maokai, and the passive got changed to be a lot of his maximum HP and scales up over time, you end up healing yourself for literally 700 to 900 later in the game. And TSM don't have an Ignite. They're going to need an Executioner's Calling against both the Vladimir and the Maokai. There's so much healing on this team.
Right, they've got Morellonomicon on Bjergsen. That's the only Grievous Wounds applier available to this team right now. DoubleLift will likely be going for that execution and calling for too much longer, but he wants to get the base 3-item spike for Tristana before anything else. Infinity
The Energized build looking for Piglet though.
But in some trouble. The field side they go, and Piglet drops instantly. Matt gonna be going down next unless he's careful, dashing away to the safety of Inori. With tier 2 already down in the minion wave mid lane, the tier 3 is the target. TSM breaking into Liquid base, not even 24 minutes into this game. And without their AD carry, Liquid will not put up a fight and surrender the Indian.
They thought it was safe. They were pushing out some side lanes, and that's what TSM do, is they punish when their top and their bottom side lanes were pushing in. There's no tier 2 turret available in the mid lane, so just shove it very quickly. That's inhibitor at 23.5 minutes for TSM. And now we're seeing a little bit more of that fast pace. It's not that gentleman's agreement. It's that super fast, get in your face, and try to get these objectives very quickly. And that's exactly what they did there. And now you can see Piglet goes, let's not let that happen again. QSS purchase.
And that's exactly what the EU teams were talking about at Rift Rivals, right? They explode early on into the Rift. They make sure that their early game is very powerful, very effective. They keep that tempo high as the game pushes on, and they snowball the win from it.
Yeah, and it was the side lane pressure as well, where TL really don't manage their side lanes too much. And you can see their side lane on top was pushed in, their side lane on bottom was pushed in, and then just the flank through the vision, the flash into the stun, into the body slam flash, just locks up Piglet. Matt tried his best to peel there using his charm and just passing through multiple people, but still was not enough there. Quickness, not enough really to save him.
I mean, Rakan's very, very effective against multiple targets.
Yes.
5 versus 1 is not a situation that's usually peelable by any means.
No, not quite. But now they have to deal with mid lane, having constant super minions in it. And look at that, goes for backline.
All right, fight starting off. Seeing what they can do onto this one. The Maokai ult finds its way into the fight, and now TSM backing themselves up as health bars go down. Lourlo putting some pain into Biofrost. Hauntzer taken low enough that he's not able to stay in the middle of the fight with that ulti ticking, and both sides disengage.
GoldenGlue, wasn't sure what he was afraid of there, because I feel like the Vladimir can really get into that backline and just destroy, because DoubleLift still had his Buster shot available, Bjergsen still had his ultimate available, so he's looking for an opportunity once the stun is down, just dive that backline, try to get in there, but his front line was taking the brunt of that. Nobody dies, but it ends up being a Mountain Drake going over to TL, but there's some pings on the Baron here. I feel like TSM are going to try to look for at least vision denial, clearing out all these control wards.
I want to get something for trading off that Mountain Drake. They were in control of elementals up until this point, but having lost the Mountain Drake, that means that TL is going to have extra objective power as the game goes on. Next Drake is going to be a Mountain as well, so if TL can double stack those, it actually opens up new opportunities in terms of Baron taking times, tower push potential, and makes mistakes that much scarier for TSM. Because when you do make a mistake, if you do end up allowing your opponents an opportunity to push, those few extra seconds that it won't take them to grab one of those objectives can be the difference. Liquid now pushing up with multiple members in the mid lane, seeing what they may be able to find here. Still down 3,000 gold, so they're not with an edge in a team fight.
Yeah, and Hauntzer has a 2,000 gold lead over Lourlo in the top lane and has a completed Gargoyle Stoneplate and is pretty much a full item up right now. They're trying to engage though, and Inori did flash. Still gets Bjergsen.
One they got to catch out, and it looks like they've got him. Bjergsen down, Piglet taking the kill as TSM now has to run themselves back, but Piglet has been killed in response. 4 versus 4 is going to be the tune of the fight as Lourlo finds himself isolated, charges backwards to safety, and TSM will make that fight work despite the bad start.
Yeah, Inori flashed, went for the root, but got the root eventually on the flashless Bjergsen, and so he goes down. And like I was saying, there's pretty much no way to protect Bjergsen and DoubleLift both in fights, and especially Bjergsen. He's going to have more deaths in this game as it goes on, because they can just dive and say, this guy is dying, whether he likes it or not.
One way or the other.
Well, I don't think you ever like dying. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think anybody's ever like, oh man, cool, I died.
Kog'Maw. No. Anyway.
Gotta utilize that passive.
Anyway.
Team Liquid, happy to catch out the enemy mid laner, but sacrificing your own AD carry for it, not enough way. And Inori super low on mana here. Lourlo putting down some damage, helping his jungler escape.
Yeah, they don't have much vision control in the Baron pit right now from TL's side. It's mostly TSM wards. They keep sweeping across it, making sure they have nothing in here. So you have to check, and that's what they were doing, is they were going for a face check there, hoping that somebody walks in. And Maokai's sapling range is actually very large. You talked about how like Ivor and Brushmaker had a very large range for vision. Like the saplings is also incredibly large in terms of how far you can throw them into brush to just get vision. It avoids a lot of face checks, so just another thing to kind of chalk up to the power of Maokai and why he's such a good jungler right now.
And you know, Team Liquid has honestly been playing this game pretty well for themselves so far. Coming into this, many people were just looking at this as TSM should be getting a rather easy win here, considering the position of the two teams on the current standings of NA LCS. But Liquid has pretty much gone toe-to-toe with these guys for the majority of this game. There's been a couple slip-ups, there's been a couple mistakes. We talked about the macro errors and using leads improperly, trying to force things, but now they're forcing the fight onto Svenskeren, who gets himself caught out, jumped on by multiple members. Into the back line goes Inori, ultimate fired off. TSM now maybe looking for a counterattack. DoubleLift still off to the side, not near the fight in time. Liquid's opportunity to go for something there doesn't really amount to what they wanted. Their inhibitor respawns mid lane at the same time, alleviating some of that map pressure, and Liquid is actually the ones on the inside track on mid as Hauntzer finds himself isolated from the rest of TSM. No ultimate available, pops the stone plate to stay alive. Svenskeren now once again the man on his own, and Nori going for the twisted advance as Matt is forced to use the grand entrance to make a grand exit. Flashing away after the fact to secure his own life as DoubleLift would threaten otherwise.
Yeah, and Hauntzer's just up so much right now. He's up 2.5 thousand gold over Lourlo. He has the stone plate. He also has the Warden's Mail. And Lourlo's just sitting on a cloth armor in terms of that difference. So really, Hauntzer is just a big, beefy frontliner who can just soak up. And this is the big thing, is he's not just, you know, the way that these affect the fights is he gets to push back the enemy backline and the front line so that they can't really reach Bjergsen or put pressure on him. And he kept his Banshee's Veil up that entire time because of the fact that Hauntzer gets to soak for so long. And Svenskeren gets to soak for so long now. It's also one of the great changes to the way that the meta shifted, where Cinderhulk became so good that Gragas now takes it, where Gragas before was like Runic Echoes. Now I've spent so much gold on non-tanky stats that Gragas ends up very, very flimsy in the mid-game. Now, he's just incredibly beefy in the mid-game. You get your Knight's Vow, you get your Gargoyle Stone Plate, and you're good to go with a ton of damage reduction from your Drunken Rage. So they have two pretty big bruiser tanks on TSM side who have a lot of gold, who can be a frontline and kind of stop the Vladimir from getting in. But you do have to worry about the Rakan reaching that backline very quickly alongside the Kled.
And that front line is going to be ever so important, protecting DoubleLift, who's now hit that 3-item power spike that makes Tristana super threatening in a team fight. With that amount of DPS, he can just destroy Team Liquid health bars if giving the opportunity to free fire. It's all about that protection as the charge is sounded and the fight starts off. Liquid looking to make this one happen, but the chaos is all over the place. Into the back line, trying to find DoubleLift. Emo Plague explodes, but Inori's going to be dropped first unless he's careful. Jump over the wall, and Bjergsen has kill number 1. Looking to make it 2, finds the kill into Piglet. Matt's going to be going down next. A double kill for Bjerg as Lourlo gets collapsed on by the rest of the team. GoldenGlue runs for his life, and Bjergsen collects a triple.
Yeah, TL end up pulling the trigger on a fight. It gets kited backwards at TSM come out on top, right near the Baron.
And there's your prize. Baron Nashor now the target for the remaining members of TSM. Having only lost their top laner, there's more than enough damage to capably take this one down, and Liquid's 2 remaining men cannot even try to stop it.
Yeah, and a big part of that fight was TSM got the purchase right before it, and then TL came out. We talked about how DoubleLift had the 3-item power spike of the Energizer build. Piglet's sitting on 1,300 gold right now, and then they go for the fight. They go in, they don't get onto a good target here, but people get to rush forward, and then chunk out onto the Rakan, who wants to reach that back line, but then GoldenGlue goes around, and the flash away from DoubleLift keeps him safe. The heal just in case as well. Jumps over, picks up Inori, gets the reset. Bjergsen also just kind of swapped places there with where GoldenGlue was flanking from. And then the other kills come in. There's a 3 for 0. Well, 3 for 1, sorry. Hauntzer drops there after being the very durable front line.
TSM did a good job keeping those carries safe back in that Wraith pit, making sure that they weren't easily accessed, I should say, by the front line and the threats from Team Liquid. And now with Baron buff up, TSM stronger, more ferocious than ever with a 7,000 gold lead, pushing multiple lanes at once, looking to get the most out of this Baron.
And they were able to navigate that team fight quite well, especially since their composition isn't completely built around that. Their bruisers are very far ahead. Bjergsen now 7-2-2 on this Syndra, so even though they're trying to dive him, the Banshee's Veil has helped him out a decent amount there. They tried to go after DoubleLift a little more in that fight, but now these turrets just get shredded, and you have that triple item on Tristana. She's up to scaling. Got that range as well.
Team Liquid is going to have to use that serious team fight potential that you talked about earlier, Zirene.
What
some way to make this okay? Well, Piglet's out of the picture, so it's going to be a real hard fight, 4 versus 5, to stop the TSM War Machine now. Bottom lane inhibitor goes down. Mid lane inhibitor will be going down next. That was just a lot of damage.
They're taking the base. They're going to get engaged on here.
TSM now jumped on Liquid, trying to make this 4v5 work out as they instantly destroy Matt. Now it's a 5 versus 3. TSM kiting this one out, playing it exactly how they need to. 4 dead on Liquid. And TSM will storm the base and end this game 33 minutes in. Lourlo, the last man standing, gets back in his faithful steed, but it's not enough. Final Nexus turret dropping as DoubleLift fires shot after shot into it. And despite Liquid's valiant efforts, they will fall to Team Solomid.
If you're a TSM fan, you're thinking that's more like it after that early game that TL looked like they were getting an advantage in team fighting comp with. TSM say, no, that's not going to fly. They start coming back into the game and make some better macro plays. They're much faster, get that middle inhib, and they show that they are still a relentless team, even if the early game doesn't go their way.
And Piglet's death under that inhibitor during
I'm
that
watching it over and over again.
I was just
right
saying,
now.
I didn't even see it. It just happened, and I saw on my screen, Piglet is dead. And I had no idea how that transpired. But Bjergsen's damage didn't even require his ultimate, by the way. You can look and see that the ultimate cooldown is still available for him to cast. Piglet just hanging out, trying to clear these waves, and it doesn't end up working out for him.
Yeah.
TSM, and that kind of shows the mastery Bjergsen has over the champion, too. Doesn't even need to fire off the ultimate. QW, 3/4 of Piglet's health. You guys are going to get to see a replay of that soon, I guarantee it. We might not have it right now, but that's something that's a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, so Piglet was full
Unless
HP.
you're Piglet.
Piglet was full HP with 1600 HP. He takes a 195 damage static shiv, and that's it from DoubleLift, so DoubleLift gets an assist. But then the other 1400 damage was an E, QW at exactly the same time. The QW did over 1100 damage to him, and then the E did the other 400 that was necessary.
Well, to get their thoughts on that final push and the TSM win as a whole, let's send things over to Dash and Mark.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. TSM fans can breathe a sigh of relief because that game didn't come as easily as you might have expected, you know, in terms of looking at this matchup on paper. But ultimately, once they got that second Baron, able to control the game and close it out off the back end of a huge performance on Syndra from Bjergsen specifically.
Yeah, but you got to look at the draft if you're TSM. Like, why are you first picking Braum? No one does that anywhere, basically. Kalista is a Piglet's best champion right now is pretty much inarguably Kalista. It gives them a place to play around the early game, playmaking tools. It's something DoubleLift can play, and I'm not saying you necessarily have to first pick it, but you gave up one of the best picks on the patch for a Braum, which doesn't even do well against it in lane necessarily.
Yeah, so some peculiar prioritization in champions like for TSM, but let's remove ourselves from that and look at the way that the game went, because we have the Syndra matchup and the Vladimir counter pick, right? You know, from Team Liquid. And here we have Bjergsen solo killing GoldenGlue in the first 9 minutes and taking the turret by himself in the first 11.
Yeah, this is one of those counter picks, quote unquote, that is exactly into what Bjergsen wants to do. This counter pick is basically there to survive the lane as best you can, but you cede pressure. And Bjergsen's an individual better player than GoldenGlue. So this, while it's a skill matchup that might be 50-50 normally, it's really going to be 60-40. And GoldenGlue was trying to set up a play there with Inori wrapping around, but Bjergsen puts a ball down to zone him, and then he runs straight at the ball and just gets stunned.
Right.
And you have your pool available and your flash. And so, like, as you're setting up that play in your head, you need to realize that he's going to use that ball to stun you. So you either need to preemptively flash in front of it maybe to bait the stun out and go into your pool early. Once you need to do something. And to just run at the ball and get stunned shows that you probably didn't have quite of awareness of what was going to happen, or not enough reaction speed.
And again, the last person on TSM that you want to be giving free gold to is Bjergsen, because he will find ways to win games when he shouldn't, and he'll find ways to kill people when he shouldn't be able to. As was mentioned by the casters, throughout that early and middle portion of the game, though, yes, Bjergsen's doing work in the mid lane. Team Liquid, though, finding some skirmishes that end up going in their favor, and is what made it a precarious game for TSM to begin with. Here in the bot lane, going to go 4 for 1.
Well, this exactly comes down to the draft when we were talking about it. Why is your bot turret already down? Why are you getting dove here on this play? It's because you gave up this Kalista pick that Piglet and Matt were able to use to generate their own leads. They get 2 quick kills on the enemy bot lane, and TSM moves to collapse. But at this point, it's a 4v5, and there's not much that they can do. Or, excuse me, 4v3.
Yes.
So even though, you know, you're stronger on these other parts of the map, and they're missing their top laner, you have such a hard time getting involved with this fight. Inori does a great ultimate to zone away Bjergsen, and they get to melt down Hauntzer when he's alone in the fight, and then they get a re-engage onto Bjergsen, putting them a 4 for 1 after a play that's entirely keyed off the bot lane advantage that Piglet had made for himself.
Bjergsen lucky to pick up a kill there on the back end of that, just to salvage a little bit of gold, but I think that one of the biggest things is yes, all that's happening based on the picks given over to Team Liquid's bot lane in terms of enabling them to make the plays that they want. And on top of that, the amount of resources TSM had to spend still to lose that fight and allow Lourlo to be pushing in the top lane is huge advantages handed over to Team Liquid. But here's the thing, TSM is the one who came away with the victory.
Yeah, and it's just because they're a better team. It's fortunate for them that they can, make some of these mistakes and get away, kind of unfazed from it, because a couple of these fights were very close to going way more in TSM's favor, or excuse me, TL's favor. If you look at that mid lane fight where they were chasing down with the Kled ultimate, just barely unable to get the next 2 kills, ends up a 2-for-1 instead of what should have been a 4-for-1.
And you say it's because TSM's a better team, right? And
yes.
No one's going to argue that point, but let's identify what makes them a better team. I think one of the most telling moments was the simple decision to 5-man group and push mid. But it was done instantaneously, right? There's no second guessing the call itself. It's push mid, get a pick, take that early inhib. This comes 30 minutes into the game, 3-for-0 in the mid lane for TSM. DoubleLift going to do some work here on the back end after he gets out of a precarious position. Yeah, really dangerous position to be in by DoubleLift, but TSM, like you said, by going up that mid lane, had stabilized the game to the point where DoubleLift is now, deleting Piglet. You got to the point where, the Tristana's online and can start getting these resets through the fight off the fact that TL does not play around with their pressure very well. We know that sometimes they just are not in the right spot on the map, and there they go. They lose a mid inhib and give up a kill, despite being, I think it was 7-4 at the point that happened, and kind of up gold. So TSM able to move around the map better, stall out the game till when their team fighting gets a little bit closer to even with the Tristana pick, and then after that, there's no looking back. Right now, at Captain Flower's request, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that Piglet getting popped by Bjergsen here, who happens to be our player of the game on this Syndra. Again, he made a name for himself in Europe on this champion, and no surprise that he still performs at the highest level here in North America with it as well. I mean, people talk about that Jensen burst that he took during the finals in spring. Piglet taking a bigger chunk of it right there. I mean, that was absolute insanity, right? Like, literally from 100 to 0 in the same frame. Like, you didn't see incremental drops in health. That was alive to dead in a moment. Okay, we're moving into game 2 here. Team Liquid, how do they shore up this game? Because they did get advantages, right? That early game played out the way you would have wanted it to play out for Team Liquid against TSM in a lot of ways. Yeah, the only thing you need to do is stabilize the mid matchup a little bit more. Okay. And I think, yes, Syndra is an extremely strong champion. Can you ban it versus Bjergsen on red side? It's a little hard to fit that in sometimes, so I can understand that he gets the champion, but you need to have something better prepared than Vladimir. I understand it, for a lot of situations, Vladimir's fine, but you have to understand you're against Bjergsen, one of the best players in the league all time, and he's getting his comfort champion, and you're taking a matchup that is skill at best, and you're down pressure in the early game with a Maokai, which is not an extremely strong jungler. So if you just took a little bit more stable of a mid lane matchup and let your bot lane snowball, maybe you can make something work. Exactly. If that mid lane's more even, then maybe the advantages that Piglet and Matt created would have been enough to carry the game through. Just receiving word that Rainover will be subbing in, so we're going to get another look at him after seeing Inori perform more recently for the team on this Maokai pick. Now, hard to say exactly what Rainover will come out with. I mean, we know, again, one of his top champions of all time is that Rek'Sai, and so maybe they're looking for something like that, again, to create more action in the early game and make that 2K gold advantage, a 5K gold advantage. Yeah, you have obviously pretty different champion pools. I did not take Inori as the Maokai player, but that's kind of what he's become. So here, very baffling. You're probably going to end up more on an Olaf, which is something that hasn't really seen nerfs. Cinder Hulk has been buffed a little bit. Maybe this is something where you see that, like you said, the Rek'Sai or the Olaf. Right. And then here on blue side, you do still have first pick, so you can probably get that Kalista again if TSM does not ban it in the first rotation. Right, so Righteous Glory Olaf. Let's go. Yeah, maybe you end up with another bot lane snowball situation, and you can figure out something for that mid lane. And especially back on blue side, they might not even have to contest for that Kalista, right? I mean, TSM was happy to give it over in game 1, but given how strong a pick it is for Piglet, they may even prioritize that first rotation for the side of Team Liquid. Either way, TSM are 1 win away from tying up first place. We'll see if Liquid can disrupt their plan when we return for game 2. That series continues after the break.